What is going on, Diesel Nation? We're excited to have you guys with us today on the Diesel Podcast. If you're watching this on YouTube and aren't subscribed, make sure and click the subscribe button, like, comment, let us know what you think about the episode. If there's any particular guest or topic that you want covered, we're always checking your comments on YouTube. Love to be able to hear from you guys and then get those comments on to future episodes. Today I'm going to be joined by Tom from Royal Offroad and Diesel. He was on earlier this year. We had chatted with him about EV trucks and emissions. He's a diesel shop owner, and he had a really interesting video recently that was talking about a customer that had to return their truck to stock. And I wanted to chat with him more about that, how common it is, reasons that people do it, and if he's ever seen an individual truck owner that's had any issues with the EPA or with any sort of agency in their state with being forced to return it to stock. So I'm definitely looking forward to chatting with him today. Before we get to it, though, I want to remind you our friends over at Kershaw Knives have a 20% off site-wide code for you. So if you're in the market for a knife for hunting, fishing, EDC, something around the house or job site, or it's holiday season to give as a gift, they've got a ton of choices, a bunch of different knives to choose from, a bunch of different opening mechanisms, blade, steel, handle designs. If you use code DIESEL2023 at kershaw.kaiusa.com, you get 20% off site-wide. So it's a great way to save some money and get some really cool gear. All right, let's get to today's podcast with Tom, ask him about why customers are returning to stock and if he's ever seen any issues or any people who are forced to return their truck to stock configuration. Tom, welcome back to the Diesel Podcast. I really enjoyed our chat. I want to say it was a few months ago, but time seems to be going by really quick. So it was a little bit ago, but it was a great way to get introduced to your company, some things that are going on in the industry. It was really cool. So I was on your Instagram recently. You guys had a really funny kind of parody video, but it really highlights something that's going on in diesel, which are people that either have a truck they bought that they need to return to stock or for whatever reason they're doing it. So I look forward to chatting with you about that today.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
For those who didn't catch that episode, our last one, tell us a bit about yourself, your company, what you do, where you're located, and what you guys specialize on.
Okay, so before on the first episode, we were actually located just about an hour north of Las Cruces, New Mexico. We've actually since then relocated down to El Paso, Texas. And like I said in my last video, we're trying to get away from like doing, your basic, mom and pop type stuff and like your four bangers and stuff like that. So now that we're down here in El Paso, we're able to specialize more into, your light duty diesels, your off-road stuff, like what I got here.
Yeah.
So, but yeah, and to be honest, man, it's been awesome since we moved down here. Especially, being close to the military base and everything, and with all the law enforcement that are down here and everything. So, and being former military myself and everything. So it's a really great way for us to, kind of connect with our customers and whatnot. So, but yeah, basically we just specialize in, your off-road toys, your Jeeps, your 4Runners, stuff like that. Also, your Power Strokes, your Cummins, your Duramax, stuff like that. Also, been kind of messing with the Nissan Cummins here and there, which I actually got one on the other side of this thing, which don't do it. Just don't do it.
We get lots of questions.
I think I made.
We get lots of questions about those, like just to do an episode about what parts are available and things that are out there, but it's really tough. It seems like the aftermarket just slowed way down on development and R&D and stuff with them.
Yeah. So, but yeah, it was, just trying to find, parts through the dealership is pulling tooth and nail.
Oh yeah.
So,
I think
hell, I'm able to find parts for this thing, and we're in the middle of a strike right now with these guys. So, it's like, come on, man.
Oh yeah.
So,
I think that's going to converge on our topic today. So there's a video I saw that you did with a guy in the shop, and you were, talking about a customer who brought you a truck and said, "I want to return to stock." But I want you to tell the story of how that particular truck came to be, what the customer wanted, and then, maybe other customers or just what you're seeing out there.
Well, I wouldn't say that he wanted to have it return to stock. The issue is he did what's called a poor man's delete. So basically, all he did was he put a tune on there, disabled his diesel particulate filter, disabled his EGR, disabled his DEF system, all that stuff. And so what happened is he's got that diesel particulate filter still in there, and it's not regenerating. It's just constantly, just getting plugged up more and more and more. And then you got all this pressure that is built up. And then what ends up happening is you start having issues, because that pressure has nowhere else to go. So you can deal with things like cracked heads, which is a common thing that I see. Another thing that I see is injectors failing. I've even gone as far as seeing diesel particulate filters just completely exploding, just because the pressure's got nowhere to go. So if you're doing it on your off-road vehicle, if you're going to delete it, you need to do it the right way. You need to spend the money because, and honestly, man, like, to be honest, the cost to actually delete your truck is not as bad as it used to be. I mean, yeah, if you got a Duramax, it can cost upwards of $6,000-7,000 because a lot of them you have to get your a whole new PCM and everything. But for like your Cummins, your Power Strokes, your older Duramax trucks, it's really not all that bad to do.
I keep
So
seeing I keep seeing a lot of people asking, like, how do I return to stock, or they're wanting to do it for some reason, but I don't necessarily know the whole background of it.
Yeah.
But with you being on the front lines, what is it like to find, say, a DPF from a third gen 6.7 or a 6.4, or some of these things that these people might not have? Maybe they're not the original owner who did it.
So a lot of times when I get people that come back saying that they want their stuff returned to stock, and actually we're in the process right now with one of our local Ford dealerships because they've been buying deleted trucks and they have to return them to stock, but they're getting so busy with all their other stuff that they have to get done that they're not able to focus on these, so they've been outsourcing them. So that's one big issue. Another reason why I see a lot of people return their trucks back to stock is, like, for example, I got guys that are here at Fort Bliss and they're getting ready to get out of the military and go back home to places like California, New York, New Jersey, uh, places like that where you have to have that stuff on there. And now they're like trying to scramble and get all that stuff put back on there and everything. So that's one big reason why I'm seeing it. And also, I mean, I'm not sure if we talked about it last time, but I mean, the EPA is going after the end users as well. So, I mean, you're seeing people that are trying to sell their trucks online, and you got somebody that's showing up to, look at the truck, and the next thing you know, they're getting a letter in the mail from the EPA saying, "Hey, we're suspending your registration. We're suspending, you can't drive the truck. It's not allowed on the roads or anything like that, and until you have it put back to stock, and it has to be inspected before you can put it back to stock. Oh, and you can't sell your truck either." So,
Have you come across people personally, like day to day, that have told you, "Hey, I got a letter," or there's something going on like that?
I've only had one person, and that was actually when we were in New Mexico. And that still kind of caught me off guard because it's not really a huge emission state. Uh, Unlike places like New York, California, New Jersey, places like that. A lot of the people that I see coming through are people that are, they're getting ready to go back to uh, their home state, California, New York, places like that. Not so much here. I don't see it a whole lot here in Texas, but a lot of them, or a lot of the people I do see that are trying to get their stuff returned to stock are people that are going back to those states,
Yeah.
and then also the dealers, the dealerships as well, because a lot of dealerships, especially if it's like a actual Ford dealership. I know that they've got regulations and stuff like that. I've heard of some dealerships selling their trucks deleted, but I think those are mostly like used car dealerships and like specific used car dealerships.
Is it
So,
hard? Is it hard to
but
get brand new OEM parts? Like, say for some of those Ford trucks, it could be any of the big three, but is it hard to get them?
mm, well, right now it's been kind of hard with the strike going on. But like, for example, with the Ford dealerships that are wanting to bring us their trucks, they're telling us, "Hey, we're going to provide you the tuning to return it to stock. We're going to provide you everything that's needed for it." So it shouldn't be so hard with them. But I mean, I did have one guy that we did have to return his truck back to stock, and I mean, we ended up just having to go on the internet and just find what we could find, like from eBay or whatever. And I had to explain to the customer, like, hey, man, this is basically the options that we got going on right now. So, uh, you know, what do you want to do? Do you want us to go ahead and order the stuff off the internet, or do you want us to try to find the stuff from the dealership? And he just said, just order it off the internet. I don't care. So, it really depends. I mean, and like I think I've mentioned this before, but one thing is just if you can try to keep or try to keep your stuff at least, but a lot of people don't listen.
Yeah.
So
I think that's where a lot of the a lot of the interest in this topic comes
yeah,
about, because people might have a truck for a while, and we've had emissions lawyers on. There's other media sources that are out there that have been
yeah,
talking about it. So it's definitely more kind of in people's minds. I did want to ask you about the strike a little bit, because not to go too far off on a tangent, but I think it affects this and a lot of people who are looking for parts, and a lot of shop owners out there. Have
mm-hmm.
you had a lot of issues since there's been a strike going on trying to get stuff? How has that impacted your day-to-day work?
So as far as the strike goes, I've got a eco diesel sitting outside my shop that's been out there for about a month now, and we haven't been able to get the parts for it. And the thing is, honestly, I would say that's worse through the Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep dealerships, because a lot of their newer stuff is dealership only. So like I can't go to Thoroughbred Diesel or AutoZone or O'Reilly's or Napa. I have to go straight through the dealership, and it can be a pain in the butt. Like I just got a phone call today saying that all the parts that we need for that eco diesel are finally on their way over here. So that's yeah. So whereas before, all I'd have to do is just make a phone call. Okay, it'll be here in like 3 days.
Yeah.
So, which I would definitely say the Dodge, Chrysler, Jeep guys, it's worse with them because so many of their parts are dealer only type thing.
Okay.
So,
That makes
which
sense.
I mean isn't a bad thing because you're still getting an OEM part, but when you're having to wait for a month, that's when it gets ridiculous. So,
That was one
and
of the big things when I heard about the strike happening, and I had read an article about it, and they were talking about the supply of parts and how that would all work. And I thought, oh man, because it was tough for a couple of years just trying to get stuff with maybe production being lower or not as consistent. So you guys have really been on the front lines of trying to keep these
yeah,
trucks running, which I think kind of goes back to, I don't remember if we touched on it before, but maintaining our trucks, doing a good job
yeah,
with that. So maybe we can avoid needing a part that's hard to get, or it's not being made right now, or whatever it might be.
yeah. Well, when it, like I mean we have to maintain our vehicles. There's no way around that. We still we have to change the oil, we have to change the filters, stuff like that. So a lot of the maintenance only part, like your basic maintenance parts, those have been easy to get. But like for example, I had a Cummins in here probably about maybe a month ago, and just one little uh pigtail for the sensor, I could not find it anywhere. It was dealership only, and it took them about 3 weeks to get it here. And I had to sit there and explain to the customer, like, this is literally the only thing that is holding us back. So, um, yeah, I mean, when it comes to repairs, I mean, things are going to break, and there's, a lot of people ask me, like, how do I prevent this from breaking? Well, a lot of like these sensors and stuff like that, they just break. You
Yeah.
know, it could have been built by someone at 4 p.m. on a Friday, and they wanted to get out of there, type thing. So, um, yeah, I mean, with the strike going on and everything, right now, which I've heard some stuff saying that some of the other companies are starting to make agreements and stuff like that. I did hear, I know one of the three they came up with like a, I don't know the word, like a temporary deal or something like that, and I did hear that the unions did shoot that one down. So who knows?
I thought of a question to ask you with this because I get it a lot and I don't necessarily know how to really answer it. And it's somebody who is looking to buy a diesel. It might not be their first, could be their first, but they could buy a new one or one a couple years old, or they're going right back to like pre 2007. From an aftermarket support perspective and a parts supply perspective, can you get something for say like an LB7 or an 03 to 0759 or a 73 or 60 a lot easier than you could some of these components on newer trucks? And not necessarily the maintenance stuff, but like you mentioned, pigtails, electronics, and other things that are just going to fail. Is it easier on the older ones to get?
Oh yeah, it's way easier. I mean, that's why I drive a 7.3. So so and I mean that's why I prefer to have the older ones. Like people tell me all the time, like, dude, why don't you just go to the dealership and go, drop the money on a 6.7? I'm First off, I don't want to spend that kind of money. Second off, I don't want to spend, you know, 6 weeks trying to, fix a stupid sensor that I can't get because somebody wants to work a 32-hour work week and get paid for 40 hours. So,
Yeah, that's a whole side of, I think, the diesel community that I think gets overlooked so much because what gets the attention and what'll grab you on social media or on YouTube or something is the big power, the really fast trucks, the street trucks, the racing. But most of it is just I want it to start, I want it to run, I want to keep it for a while, I want it to tow my trailer, I want to get decent fuel economy. What's the
yeah.
best one for me to get? And so I think even though the trucks are older, they're 20 years plus, the aftermarket hasn't slowed for them. I keep hearing about things with 7.3s and 6.0s and five
Oh,
nines
yeah.
that are still coming out. Some of these kind of daily, maybe not daily, but just these parts that break and they're not supported by the OEMs anymore. And then an aftermarket company comes in, says, hey, we're going to tool up, we're going to build this, and we can keep your truck on the road.
Right. And it's funny that you mentioned that because we were actually in the process of making our own 7.3 e-fuel system to where it's going to be cheaper for you or, well, at a better price. And then uh, way easier to install, like easier than everybody else. So yeah, I know what you mean, but and I think what it is that so many people have, or it's a lot easier for people to come up with the with the engineering and stuff like that for these older trucks as well. So I mean, you got Full Force Diesel always coming up with stuff. You've got uh, who Thoroughbred Diesel coming up with their own stuff. You've got Bless Performance coming up with their stuff for the 6.0s. So I mean, I would say it's going to be a very long time until or before you're not going to see any 7.3s or 6.0s or 12 valves or pre-common rail Cummins trucks on the road. So
What do you see a lot of in El Paso with customers? Or is it kind of a little bit of everything, Ford, GM, Ram, or is it a lot of Cummins, or what's it like
I,
there?
I, I would say I see a lot of Cummins and a lot of Duramax. Not so much Ford. Um, I mean I see a lot of the kids from like the southern states that are getting stationed here. A lot of them are you know moving from or bringing their Cummins and stuff like that. And then you've got some of the other kids. They're bringing like their Duramaxes from like California and Washington, Oregon, stuff like that. So, but I unfortunately I see a lot of Duramax trucks at the shop. So in fact, I got more Duramax trucks here than anything else. So
Is it are there some common failures you're seeing with them, or is it just kind of varies all over the place why they're
a
showing up?
lot of them is like power reduction type stuff or electrical failures. I've got um, the well the one that the guy who did the poor man's delete on. I mean, he's got so many different things failing on it because of his delete. And then I've got another guy here who he's got some fuel issues going on. which are electrical, or they're definitely electrical related. I got another guy here who he's got a short somewhere with his TCM, and so I would say a lot of it is electrical or fuel related issues for the most part. The a lot of the Fords I see coming through here, a lot of their stuff is like simple mechanical stuff. Like for example, we've got one guy here who's got a 7.3, which I mean you can tell just by looking at it, it's been beat to crap, and so he's going to be getting a new motor. Still working the kinks out on that one because he's actually in the Netherlands right now with his unit. And then honestly, I think that's the only power stroke that we have here at the shop. So, and then as far as like the Cummins goes, I mean, yeah, we do have one here it's also getting a new engine as well. I would say the Duramax trucks are the ones that leave us scratching our heads the most. So,
One of the
but
uh, one of the questions I really wanted to ask you, because I remember you touching on it on our first episode about,
mhm.
or maybe it was in videos on Instagram. I can't remember, but you had talked about a move and you were moving, and I wanted to ask you about that from a business perspective, because it seems like it's been great for you. There's a lot of
Oh yeah,
opportunity.
it's yeah.
What
Um,
what was the hardest part about it, or some challenges that you had either doing it or once you got up and running, and that maybe finding staff, finding who knows what.
finding staff was definitely a hard one. You like uh I like to think of myself as not a micromanager, or and I like to be more of that laid back boss. Like, hey, get this done. I got to go do this. I'll be back to check on you. And but I would say the hardest thing is just trying to find people with experience that want to work. Now, when I was up in New Mexico, I did have issues with because I was doing the hourly pay and rolling out the red carpet for people, and if I had to run down to El Paso to get a part for a semi truck or something like that, because we were the only people between Las Cruces and Albuquerque that could work on semi trucks. I say, okay, guys, let's get this done. I'm gonna head down to El Paso, pick up this part, which could be an all day thing, and then I come back and nothing's been done, and so I would say the biggest challenge was like I had to explain to people like, hey, I'm gonna pay you on a flat rate scale. Um, so the amount of work you put, or the amount of work and effort you put in, is going to reflect on your paycheck. So I would say finding staff was the hardest part. Also, just getting yourself out there. Like I've talked to a lot of people, and a lot of people say like, "Oh, I didn't even know you were here," and I'm like, "Well, yeah, we did open this location up back in July." So, but I mean, it's been going great here though for the most part. So I mean, you can't make everyone happy, but just that's a life thing in general. So, but I would say overall though it's way better down here. I'm getting to do more of what I want. Like for example, working on awesome shit like this, or working on things I actually know and love to do. I'm not getting some old guy in his BMW or his Volkswagen van that I have to do a timing chain on, and I don't want to do it because I have to pull the transmission out to do the timing chain or whatever. So,
I think that's
yeah,
really
I
important.
would,
That's really important. I didn't mean to interrupt you there, but loving what you
yeah,
do, and I think sometimes like we just get questions that I can't answer because I haven't done that. I haven't gone down that road. But somebody will say, "I'd love to work on
yeah,
things. I'd love to be around diesels, or I love to be around automotive." But I think you touched on something that I've never chatted with anyone about, and that's what are you working on? Do you love it? And the difference it makes in your personal life, your quality of life, your happiness. Can you talk about that a little bit? Like what it does for you as a leader, a business owner, being able to love exactly what you're working on or who you're talking to.
yeah. I mean, for the most part, I love what I do. I mean, I'm not gonna lie. It's not, or I don't come in here every single day with a smile on my face, but most days I do. Um, like I said, I mean, you're gonna have hurdles. You're gonna have things that you have to deal with, and as a business owner, but to continue doing what you love to do, like, trust me, I hate paying taxes, but I got to do it. I got to sit down with the accountant every quarter and say, okay, how much am I going to have to pay? Okay, let's do it. Or, like dealing with licensing, or, oh, well, here's my OSHA inspection, or, just the things that are required. I don't love that, but I have to do it to continue doing what I love. And this is something I actually talked to my girlfriend about a lot, because she's an amazing artist and an amazing cook. And I told her, I said, because she was actually going to school for nursing, and I told her, I said, listen, like, nursing, I know, is not your passion. Art, cooking, stuff like that, that's your passion. And just seeing her getting ready to, go into that path that she wants to do now, like, you can just tell that she is so much more happier, and that she knows that she's going to be a lot happier doing what she actually loves to do. So that's I would just say, if you do what you love, then, I mean, yeah, you're gonna. I forgot how to say it, because it's not if you do what you love every day, you never work a day in your life, because you got to work at doing what you love doing to be better at it. So
That's a topic I'm really passionate about, because I think
yeah,
I've done the opposite before in my life, where I've done a job because it paid X amount, and
right,
after years or months or however long, I just felt trapped. And then
right,
I see it a lot out there, where sometimes people make decisions based on just money, or maybe it's expected of them from their family, their friends, what
right,
society says, and they just end up unhappy. I never wanted to do that. I never wanted to just say, well, I'm going to do this for 40 years and I retire and things are good. Well, maybe they are not good. Maybe they're not, not in the best of health, or don't have all the resources to do it. So you have to enjoy what you're doing, every single day. And it's kind of funny. Like, somebody asked, they wanted me to share more about myself on the podcast, which is really hard for me to do, because I don't like to talk about myself. But one of them is like, why do you do a podcast? I really do it because I love it. Like,
right.
sometimes people think you make Joe Rogan money or something like that. You don't. Like him and just maybe 5 other people that do it, make big bucks. You really have to be passionate about it.
Right.
And I think that's where I see, like what you're talking about with your business and what you love about, just what you do. I found a lot of synergy there. And I think people, they identify with that, even if they're in construction or management or real estate or whatever it might be. If you love it, it's totally worth it. But if you don't,
Right.
man, it's a grind.
Yeah, because I mean, people expect me to be making, Richard Rawlings money doing what I do, and I'm like, listen, I've been to his shop. It's not what it's all hyped up to be. and trust me, there's a lot of work in there. And I mean, he figured out the science behind it. Yeah, he loves doing what he does, but he also has it down to a science. So,
What
but
are what are some things you're looking at for maybe 2024, 2025 with your business, and either growing it, expanding it? You'd mentioned a little bit about some 7.3 parts. Are you interested in designing, building, engineering, producing some stuff to help these
yeah,
truck owners?
so one thing that we're actually also getting ready to start doing is we're actually going to start building. I mean, we do engine rebuilds for our customers here, but one thing that we've been really trying to push also is uh, our own line of engines. Like, for example, like our 7.3 engines that we build, they automatically come with, things that are going to prevent issues from the that most people have to deal with. Like, for example, up pipes going out. So we're going to obviously throw in some bellowed up pipes for that. We're going to, throw in, better, or, like, what's another thing that likes to go out? The oil dipstick tube adapter. Okay, so we all know that's a big issue on those trucks. So why why put something in there that's going to leak when we can just weld it in there onto the oil pan? Stuff like that. Like, we're taking care of a lot of those common issues. That way, when you get that truck, you can drop it in there and know that it's going to run perfectly fine, and that it's also going to be backed by a warranty as well. So, and we're not just going to be doing it for just the 7.3s. We're going to be doing it for the 6.0s and the 5.9 Cummins, all the way up to the common rails as well. So we're just trying to source all the engines right now and find engines that that we can actually rebuild, because we've been I've been looking at some engines that for us to rebuild and turn around and sell, and a lot of them have not been the best quality. So yeah, like, oh yeah, that's a great, or yeah, it's a good engine. I put a little pressure in there, and I'm like, yeah, there's a crack right there, buddy.
I've heard that about
So,
cores. They can be tough to get. I had
oh, definitely.
Lenny from Dynomite Diesel on, and he was talking about core injectors, and if you buy 600, 150 might be bad. And it's just the kind of challenges that provides as far as, well, I've got to source new ones. I've got to get these things. So imagine with
Yeah,
20, 30 years of time on some of these engines, that's a process to find the good ones.
yeah. But yeah, some other things that we are also working on is, we're also like, we do have a website for like all of our appointments and stuff like that for people to come in, but we're also getting into like the whole e-commerce side of things. So, and honestly, that's a lot more work than I thought it was going to be. Like, having to go through and do each and every single item, write a description, right? Like, I could, it took me probably a week just to do all of our 7.3 injectors that we're going to be selling. So, and that was just, I had to take a few days off from that, because I was like, all right, I've been in the front of the computer too long. My eyes are starting to hurt. So, but we do plan on staying in this shop for probably another year. Cause because we did move into the shop back in July, and so we plan on staying here for at least 2 years. See how the market's going, and then eventually we do want to build our own shop. And like right now we can do 3 vehicles in the shop, but we want to be able to do 6 at a time. Uh, so hopefully we can, fingers crossed, we can at least buy the property and uh, get the building and everything. But yeah, it's just kind of seeing how the market is right now, and we're just basically looking for the right deal.
Yeah.
So, and also kind of like building our presence here in El Paso, because I mean, I did have a chance to get a 6-bay shop here in El Paso, but I didn't want to drop a bunch of money and come to find out, oh, well, this is not an off-road and diesel type community. Which, I mean, I did my homework and everything, but I didn't want to jump into something and then shoot myself in the foot.
Yeah. Yes, it was more of a calculated risk that you took to be
Yeah.
able to do it. So that's going to be cool to follow you. You'll have to keep us updated as you
Oh yeah, definitely.
as you do it, because we're going to be able to see a move, starting something, expanding, getting into these other parts of automotive. So I look forward to seeing what you do with it.
Definitely. And we are looking into doing some other things that obviously some other people have done, but we might be giving away some pretty big stuff here pretty soon also. So we're kind of looking into all that and everything. But yeah, it's definitely in the talks and everything, and we're definitely looking into that and setting the budget aside for that. So that's, yeah, we got a lot of things planned for the future. So
how do people follow you on social media to see the videos you do? They're really good, but if they got questions, they want to see what's coming up.
So we have our Facebook page, which is Royal Offroad and Diesel, which is on Facebook. Then we have our Instagram, which is Royal Offroad and Diesel, and then we just made a TikTok as well, which is Royal Offroad and Diesel. If you want to get a hold of me directly, though, crazed_diesel on Instagram, and then crazed diesel, no underscores or anything, on TikTok. So, but yeah, I and actually I just found out the other day that a bunch of people have been messaging me on TikTok, and I didn't know. And finally I like went and looked at my messages, and I'm seeing messages all the way back from August, and I'm like, oh God. And I'm like, I'm so sorry, I wasn't ignoring you. And I had to make a whole video on like, hey, if you guys, if you guys were trying to get a hold of me, yeah, I'm sorry. So, and then also I got my email, which is info at Royal Offroad and Diesel.com.
I'll make sure and tag you on TikTok when we do a clip from this, which something we started earlier this year, and I know what you mean because sometimes you get overwhelmed, we get likes and follows and stuff, and then the message section just kind of gets lost in there, and then I'll click and I'm like, oh man, I missed 7 of these. Let me go back in and get them.
Right. I went back and I looked at one guy and I was like, oh man, he messaged me back in August, and this was like not like earlier this week that I saw the message, and I'm like, sorry. like my bad. And he's like, oh, you're good. I'm still looking at buying that truck though. And I'm like, dude, if you haven't pulled the trigger yet, it ain't for you.
Well, I appreciate you chatting with me this evening, and I'd like to I'd love to just follow your growth, what you're doing. So keep putting out good content and keep us in mind. Chat with us in the future. If you see some trends or some things that are going on that you want people to know about. One of our biggest audiences for states is Texas. So, I mean, if you want to, you want to get the word out, you let me know. We'll get back on the podcast.
So, but yeah, it was great talking to you again. So
very cool. I appreciate it.
Not a problem. You have a great night.
Don't forget, Diesel fans, make sure and head on over to kershaw.kaiusa.com. Use code Diesel2023 for 20% off site-wide. It's a great way to save some money, get some really cool gear for hunting, fishing, EDC, or with the holidays right around the corner as a gift. And they've got a ton of choices with different opening mechanisms, blade steels, blade designs, handle shapes. So definitely make sure, head on over, check out what they got, and use code Diesel2023 for 20% off site-wide. Also want to give a shout out to some of our Patreon supporters, Tyler Loewen of 23 Diesel, J Cole, John, all of our other Patreon supporters, all of you who subscribe on YouTube and podcast apps, follow us on social media. We appreciate all your support here in year 7 of the Diesel podcast and look forward to bringing you more of the content that you want to hear in 2023 and 2024. Until next time, keep the shiny side up.